All right, everyone. Welcome to episode 22 of I forgot what podcast we're on. I'm just kidding. The Unfiltered Race Fans Only podcast. We had a good chunk of different news come out through a week. Everything from some teams making some early cuts with Rodney leaving to the discussion that has to do with the All-Star race and 10 teams basically giving NASCAR the finger. And then we had what I think most fans would consider a crap race at Talladega, even though NASCAR's got their head in the sand. So we'll go ahead and we'll start with what we all thought about the racing this weekend at Talladega, and we'll go from there. So we had an off week. This was our first week back, and we're going to run to the finish. And to me, this was like starting all over the season. Everybody when we talked when we headed off into the Easter break, we kind of knew who was going to need some work and who wouldn't. And I think we all thought along the same lines, like based off of where Cindric was at Atlanta and Daytona, he was either going to be really good or really bad. So it turned out to be a good weekend for him. He won.
I
And
just want to say I picked him last week.
yeah. Oh, you know
I
what?
did pick him.
I need to go ahead and update our spreadsheet while I'm thinking about it. But
I
with
picked
that,
him last week, but not on our pre-season stuff.
yeah. So
I'm unsure what I'm doing here. I thought this was a draft show.
Oh, God,
here we go. All right. So with that, you want to start with the cup and then work backwards? You want to start with Xfinity and work forward?
Cup's good. Cup's good.
All right. So Cindric
I
was
think no matter where we start, we're going to go backwards.
Yep. All right. So the cup race, to me, watching it from start to finish, I think it just further exemplifies what we talked about at Daytona earlier in this year and what we've talked about privately before we started this show that and what I think most teams, or not most teams, but most fans agree that there's something seriously wrong with this car and how it drafts at these big tracks. It seems to do great at Atlanta in a smaller, tighter configuration with tighter turns, but these big wide tracks that are longer in length have wider turns and smoother turns that used to produce great drafting are they're just not good. I mean,
Yeah.
it was an awful race. You couldn't pass.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad on who won, obviously, as a
Yeah.
fan, but to me, the race was boring to watch. The whole
Yep.
thing was.
Yep. I would check in. So we did a pool day. Like that's how boring that's how much I used to how much I look forward to Daytona and Talladega now.
I did
I
landscaping.
know I know going in it's gonna be a boring thing to watch until the last whatever. Then they might start trying. They're either going to wad them up or they're not. But so going back and watching the pieces of it throughout the whole thing, it wasn't anything that I wasn't already expecting and wasn't, didn't do anything to change my mind on, man, I'm glad I didn't dedicate the time to watch that because I would have been pissed sitting there waiting for something to happen. And I'm not a fan that's waiting for it to have wrecks. I mean, I'm waiting for them to be able to pull out a line and make moves and they can't do it. So
Mhm.
The Xfinity still can.
yep. So, with that, what are y'all's thoughts on the Cup race first and foremost?
I basically same as you, but just I mean the fact that you got TV and Fox trying to like the beginning of the race before they're talking about how it's four wide and they're going nuts and it's like they're fuel saving. They're not.
Mhm.
That's all that 90% of Talladega Daytona is fuel saving. That's all it is. And until NASCAR can get their head out of the sand and realize that, then we're never gonna have. They're never gonna be able to fix it. They don't even think they need to fix the package because we had 76 lead changes and among 20 something drivers. Well, if everybody's saving fuel, and like at the beginning of the race, Denny Hamlin brought it up on his podcast. They're they're running all the front four were Fords, and they basically blocked all the lanes so you couldn't go anywhere. They were fuel saving, and if you didn't want to fuel save, tough shit because guess what? The lanes are blocked.
Yeah.
So
He, he
Yep.
ain't going anywhere, anyways.
yeah, so
Yep. Because they
and
don't have the
and
power to pass each other.
there's
Yeah.
finally a team. There was finally a team that within all of Toyota that I guess I don't know if the 43 and the 42 didn't get the memo, but the other six teams they got together and they balled to the wallet. They pulled out and they said we're gone. And it seemed to work for them a little bit. It made the whole pack have to speed up, but like it makes you wonder if we could get everybody to do that, if NASCAR would finally see what the problem is.
Yeah. Well, they
Because
bought to your point, they bought into the pit strategy of it's not about how fast a car you bring. It's not about whether your cars can make moves. It's about the least amount of time you can spend on pit road for fuel because you can change these tires so fast with the one lug nut system that the entire race is on pit road. Well, if all we're going to do that, let's do the race. Let's just make it 100 laps and be done with it. We don't need 200, 300, 400, make it 100 laps every plate race that's on the data on Daytona and Talladega, make them 100 laps.
make it
long
a
enough.
500K
Yep, make
instead
it
of the
one. Yep, make it 500K. You get one fucking pit stop, and that's the race. Because that's all they're racing is each other in pit road. That's not where racing is supposed to take place. It's a critical part, but at these tracks specifically,
Yeah.
it's becoming the only point of competition
and,
because the rest
and
of
like
it is co-opetition to
and like
not.
Denny Hamlin said, you don't even need tires here.
Yep,
The
there's
only
some
thing you
cars.
need is fuel. You can go on the whole race with one set of tires
Yep.
at Daytona and Talladega. So, the only thing you're on pit road for is gas.
Did you listen to Denny's podcast?
I did. Yep.
I thought it was interesting that even though they decided to run flat out, Denny said the thing that sucks is we tried pushing everybody to run that way, and ultimately it was detrimental to us. We were the ones that ended behind on pit strategy because everybody else that pulled the strategy, we weren't able to drive far enough away from them as we needed to. They all saved fuel, and they ended up jumping us when we came down pit road because they had to spend less time fueling. Because again, you didn't have to change tires, so all they had to do
but
is take less fuel.
he had the at the end of stage one, he had the Toyotas were leading until the last lap when Hendrick basically ganged up on the outside and blew right by him. I
But
mean,
he
it
says that
worked,
he said that was
but
the only time that it paid off for him, though. That strategy was not going to work to be beneficial. Once they got to about the midway point of the race, that strategy wasn't going to be beneficial anymore. And Hamlin says, but we had already run it at that point, so we kind of had to lay in the bed we made.
Yep. You played your cards too early, and
yeah, that's what it
I
was.
applaud them.
They should have waited till the third stage to do that shit.
Yep, I
Yeah.
applaud them because that's what we've been asking for is somebody, for Christ's sake, get together
Just at
and
least try
actually
it.
race and try. But Kyle Busch said it best, you're penalized for trying. If
Yep.
you're attempting to actually make the race a race, you were penalized for that by the way the car works and the pit stops and everything. So as a result, the one thing we wanted them to do, which I give them credit for trying, at least some of the teams decided to do what we had been bitching about and hoping they would at least try, like the Stuart Haas Fords did back in the Fusion Day in 2017? Yeah,
Yeah.
2017 and 2018 before we went to the Mustang,
They flat dominated
where they
that
flat
all
out lined
Talladega
up in
race.
a bullet and friggin' took off.
Yeah,
And
nobody
everybody
could
learned
pass
from
them.
that. So, yeah, so that's how I feel about Talladega. It's just it went from one of the races where in the 90s, 2000s, early 2010s, all the way up till about 2019, I really looked forward to it. And ever since then, I have not looked forward to it or Daytona because the way the teams run the races now, the engineers have taken such hold on it and how the racing is run. There's no reason to watch it. It's the least racing race you run all year. They
NASCAR doesn't
pass it
agree with
up.
you.
So
NASCAR does not agree with you. NASCAR thinks it's the best racing they've had all year, and we probably need 10 more of them.
well,
But honestly, if you look at it from the aspect of
here,
how not looking at it from that aspect, but if you look at what Alan just said, when we were watching those races back then, where was our mental state?
What do you mean?
When we were watching this stuff in the past, even though granted the racing was better, the package that was on the racetrack was better, but guess what? We got to, even at that age, there was some excitement even for us until we grew up and realized what goes into the sport.
Yeah.
The detriment that it can be to the drivers when they get in accidents like that. But so even some of us thought, you know, that was fucking cool to see them wreck that many cars.
Mm-hmm.
And now that seems to be what they strive for. Now they don't want a separation in the cars anymore. We used to have big wrecks in the past, but now, other than this week, it's. I mean, there's a reason why. What was it, about 5 years ago? Uh, Mike Joy made the comment at the beginning of one of the Talladega races: the world's fastest junkyard.
Yeah.
And NASCAR ultimately thinks that's what everybody wants to fucking see.
Well, yeah, the commentators every about 10 minutes. The big one hasn't happened yet. When will it?
Yep.
Yep.
So, and you know, with the racing, they did, you know, last 10 laps, you could tell that they ratcheted up their balls to the wall. And when that happened, all you get is too wide. They, you know, where you are, as long as you don't screw up and come out of line on the top lane, you are there. There is no moving up. The only moving up that happened was when uh, Larson pushed Cindric out to a really good lead, and he got a gap between him and Byron on the top, and it let the 60 go to the high side. The 60 was behind Larson, and he moved up, and he got in the high lane, and then Byron pushed him forward. But after that, there was no moving up. You are where you're at, and you know I think Denny brought it up on his podcast there as well. He said the commentators brought up that Larson's backing off so he can get a run. He's like, to go where?
Yeah.
Cindric's on the bottom. Where's he going to go? He can't go anywhere. So, you know, wherever you were before to go is where you finished. Plus or minus one.
What I can't understand is how NASCAR, we're not that far removed from when we had good racing at these tracks. And I don't want to see an accident like what Ryan Newman had at the 2020 Daytona 500, but that was plate racing still at its like peak optimal point with that car, because Denny Hamlin on the backstretch lost the lead and didn't have to block a bunch of people or wreck a bunch of people, because you could still make the moves, get the draft to suck up, and coming to the line, you didn't know who was going to win that race.
You still had a mile to get the draft back.
And it was like that at all all four of the big ones before we repaved Atlanta. And now, to me, I don't watch because I know nothing like that is possibly going to happen. Not Ryan Newman's crash, but the fact that I know that when they get separated like that, nobody's going to get a run like that and make some amazing move and set somebody up. I mean, that finish to that race in 2020, not barring Newman's horrific crash, but the moves Denny made to win that race and the way he manipulated his car in the draft to get those passes and get back up there was a master class in drafting. In the same way that Brad did it in the Wicked Apple car at Dega, and the same way that Joey's done it at Daytona for years. And it's, feast or famine for him. But those kind of moves don't work anymore because this car is not capable of doing those things.
I think you can do those moves if, for some reason, that top lane breaks down. You know, you have to be single file in the first, say, 5 rows to be able to think that you're going to make a pass. But the last, probably 3 Dega races, you're side by side. There is no way to make a run to go somewhere because there's somebody on your outside. And the outside lane, if they go out to the third lane, you're just going backwards because everybody's, throttled up. You can't do like what you do when you're at 90% throttle early in a race because, so I just think we're stuck with this because NASCAR's got blinders on. They think it was great, wonderful.
Yeah. So
in my opinion, the only other thing to talk about in this race is the hit that Christopher Bell took.
Yeah, that was a big hit.
That that I think I understand why the tracks have those outward walls that are protruding out for the emergency workers,
Yeah, for the safety
but
vehicle.
I don't think they need to be protruding that far out. That's the angle that's out is just kind of ridiculous. And I know that's a low chance wrecking area, but obviously it just happened. So
Well,
But it's not that's the third or fourth wreck that we've seen that they hit that section of the wall, and I think even Denny brought that one up too, just like the wreck that Jeff Gordon had in Vegas. Vegas went through and redesigned that wall. They got rid of how the wall came out towards the racetrack to eliminate
yeah,
that hit right there. And Daytona has never fixed it. They put a safer barrier on it, but they've never straightened out the wall to ultimately deflect and minimize the impact on that fucking wall right there. You can move the inside wall in and flatten that wall out
yeah,
and take away almost any chance of them, because you're still going to have the angle out where the safety car has to come out, but do it on the wall that's hidden behind. Don't do it on the front wall.
yeah,
It's gonna minimize the impact area on if they are going to hit at a bad angle. There's still the possibility of it, just where there's any wall opening at all. There's always going to be a possibility of just hitting bad, but you got to minimize it as much as you can. Not yeah, that's just stupid.
no, I'm 100% agreement that there's areas where they've known our problems for the years. I mean that area where Elliott Sadler hit at Pocono and it knocked the engine out of the fucking car is another one of
Oh,
the kind of areas that they knew was a problem. It's not like it was a new area. They just, and to your point, by saying it's a low percentage, my mathematics and probability would say yes. The laws of racing, if there is such a thing, say otherwise. Like if there's an area, a weak spot, the cars are going to find it. That's just how
oh yeah,
the natural law of racing works. They tend to always find the worst place you could possibly.
yeah. It's Mark Martin in Talladega, and what year was that, Chris?
Oh yeah,
yeah, 97.
or at Michigan when he came down to pit wall and
Yeah,
that again
shoot.
impaled that 55 car. I was like,
in
If
I
in
don't know how
in
he's still
20
alive.
in
another,
12.
what was that, about a foot forward, we don't
It
have Mark
wasn't even
Martin.
that. It wasn't even that. In 2012, the oil coolers were actually bolted to the back side of the roll bar, the center, basically the center support that runs from driver's side to passenger side inside the race car, and the driver's seat sits on the front side of that bar, and the fucking oil cooler, it bolts to the back of that bar, and it busted the oil cooler.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
about
So
six.
it was maybe 6 inches, maybe 6 inches.
the difference between him still being here to talk about his stuff is the car of tomorrow, without question, where they moved everybody over away from the door, whatever, however many inches it was. Because if he was still there and he hits that in the old car, it runs him through like a fucking, shish kebab skewer like you're putting on the grill. And that's the end of my
Yeah.
like
Why are you making me hungry for?
right. So uh, but I got nothing else to talk about on the Dega
But
side
I guess
other than
also
I'm
the
glad
pit road
for Brad
entry.
that Cindric won. I had a feeling he was either going to be all right, he's out of mojo, or he's going to be damn tough to beat, and it was the second one.
Yeah.
He was damn tough to beat, and basically all the good efforts from the first two drafting races, I mean, paid off. He's one of the best. Denny said it. Even though
He's
he could
good.
some
He's
things,
good
but
at it.
he's good.
And he also got dog cussed in the middle of the race too after stage two by his own teammate
Yeah,
for pushing Wallace to the stage win. I'm like,
Yeah.
I get being mad, but that's kind of a jackass move for your own teammates to
uh,
talk shit about you like that. Like,
I
come
don't
on.
know if y'all saw what I sent in the feed earlier, but Joey was talking about how Chipper Jones
Yes.
talked smack about that, and he said, I guess he's trying to be relevant. Like bringing
Yep.
you up is not being relative. Like
Yeah.
like you can't, whether you're in the moment or not. That's your teammate. You can't be
Yeah.
dogging him like that.
And it was
On
dogging him bad too, man.
Yeah,
It was
he's a
bad.
piece of shit. Like
Yeah.
it was an obvious accident. in my opinion. I don't. I
Yeah.
mean, I'd have to go back and watch,
I
but
don't even care about that part. Accident or not. This is where I side with Dale Jr. on how drafting should run. You worry about you, I'm gonna worry about me. I'm here to win. And if moving this person over here who's not on our team gives me a better chance to gain a point or a position, that's what I'm going to do. Period.
Yeah.
That's the whole problem. For Forget the version of car at the current moment. That is the antithesis of the problem with speedway racing today. And we saw it starting basically about 2018 when the Fords got together, what Stewart Haas did and Ford did and ganged up and made a line and nobody could fucking pass them. That's the problem with this racing today is the
now,
manufacturers are so involved, they don't let the drivers race. So there's no point in trying to race.
yeah, like last fall, Parker Rutzlaff puts the
Yep.
Ford, and oh my God, everybody's melting down. Who cares? We did it for years. Stop
Right.
being stupid.
Well, if I'm in
But
Park Rexloff's case, if I'm and he was with Chevy, yeah, I'm riding an RCR car, but I'm not a Chevy driver. I'm driving a Chevy, but I'm not a team Chevy driver. They're not giving me a car. They're not
yeah,
paying my bills. They're not giving me engines. They're not giving me tires. So Chevy wants me to push this guy because it's better for them. And how much money were you giving me? No, okay, then you're on your fucking own.
That's
yeah,
right.
All right, at the end of the day, I'm trying to do what's best for me because my check that's going to come in the mail is going to say Daytona or Talladega or Atlanta. It doesn't say Team Chevy.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Chevy, you're telling me that if I wouldn't have pushed him and I would have finished fourth or fifth instead of second, you were gonna give me that pay difference on that 2 or 3 spot difference on where I finished that race.
Exactly.
About 60,
Yeah.
$70,000.
Yeah. I'm sure that check will be right in the mail there.
Yeah, yeah.
Call,
Just can't
call the
wait.
Chevy exec. Call the Chevy exec to go. Hey, I backed off the 21. You got me right. No, what? Wait a minute.
Yeah. So for Mr. Brad Shannon, you got another guy winning. We'll do a quick tariff update in this discussion. There's obviously no win pre-order right now. There's going to be
Right.
art, but there's no pre-order for your wall. There won't be protos. There won't be anything because
Well,
Lion
there,
did provide us an update. I guess.
rumor is they're destroying the Fords anyways. So, I mean,
Why is that?
The what?
um, the rumor is they're destroying the Ford. So I kind of tell you a quick story of partially where
Are
this
those?
came from. Yeah.
Okay.
So back in around 2018, 17 or 18, I think it was 18, there was an artist that worked with Ford up in Michigan. And the artist was stealing them and was having somebody else sell them on eBay for them. So myself and a couple other guys actually ended up with the majority of them. And I'll tell you, the majority of them are prototype number 3. Okay. So we didn't know that they were hot at the time. We just like, okay, cool. Somebody's in Michigan, Ford is in Detroit there, whatever. They're just getting them or selling them out. We'll come to find out the artist for Ford itself was stealing them and they were having selling for them like nobody was ever going to catch that or find out. So
Yeah, they know.
thankfully,
They knew who has photo number 3.
so anytime you see basically a 17 or 18, maybe even 19 prototype number 3, good possibility it was hot at one time.
Okay.
Oh,
Don't
wow.
look at my house because majority of them are over there, but that's okay. But no, Lionel came out and said, "Hey, they didn't come after us because they knew that we didn't know that they were hot. So
Yeah.
they went after the artist and found it. Of course, that guy got the axe, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, it put a lot of bad taste in Ford's mouth. So Ford, to my understanding, and that's why I wish Chip was on here because he could probably give you more background on the reasoning why. But that's kind of what started this, and then it's put such a bad taste with Ford. They're like, you know what, fuck it, if that's where you're going to be, we'll just destroy them all. I'm like, why? People like me will buy them like an idiot.
Mhm.
Like, I
Well,
can make room for them.
it's the same thing that happened within Lionel where I don't know if you know, but I damn near got somebody fired there for what they were doing with the prototypes with some of those people walking out the back door with them.
Back door with backpacks full of them.
Yeah, back door with backpacks.
Yeah, I heard that.
Instead of, and it wasn't meant to go after anybody in the community. Now we're way off topic, but just anybody that's in the diecast collecting
Right.
history, some past history. At one point in time, there were some Lionel employees that, before the diecast proto market really blew up here over the last 10 years, people knew of inside sources and ways to get them. Like you said, that some were coming from Detroit straight up hot. Others had connections within Lionel or the older Action, employees,
I've met a couple of them
and were
too. When it was in
getting
Arizona.
access to material that you as a collector, for example, if you buy in the old day, you bought $25,000 worth of diecast, which is a large investment because you get a E-point per dollar spent for anybody who doesn't understand. Well, at the end of me collecting $25,000 worth of diecast, I'm entitled to a free proto, except for now, the proto that I wanted, it walked out the door for free to somebody and under the table the deal. That was the problem I had with it. It wasn't with any of the people within the community. My problem was with how Lionel was policing the release of these things and knowing that you've got 25 grand invested, I've got 25 grand invested. And when you go to get one, there's a Brad K or a Rusty Wallace or a proto that you've only ever seen and wanted in your dreams, and you can't get it because it went out under bad pretenses to somebody else. And you don't know where it went. You're never going to have a chance at it. And Lionel should have been doing a better job. And they did make a lot of changes after that. I remember them, Thomas showed me, here's how we're now tracking them and serializing them. And that all happened in 2018. Ford changing that process, Lionel making changes to its process. Like a lot of people got in trouble that year.
Well, it also didn't help and I could name who it is, but I'm not going to call him out because he didn't mean nothing by it. But he had a Austin Cindric Moneyline prototype, and he posted it on Twitter at the time, and Moneyline saw it, and that didn't help out. And that was part of also what spiraled into the downfall of the Fords, the newer ones.
Well, you mean sponsors actually pay attention to our tweets?
Some people do, yeah.
Wow.
But he posted a Cindric 22 Moneyline, and it was not supposed to be released at all. Like they didn't want the prototypes out there, nothing.
I wish Hendrick Motorsports would see all my tweets and all my other friends' tweets about changing the damn paint scheme for the 5-car, but that's
here. So I will say that yes, the sponsors, to your point, the sponsors do pay attention because in 2011 2012 was when Kurt Busch went to the 51 in Finch, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I got something to say to Blake there though.
We'll come right back. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I think that's an argument that, for lack of a better term, it's a dead argument. That paint scheme is never going to change.
Shut up.
No.
Can you go ahead and tell? Can you go ahead and tell Penske and Shell to change Joey's too? Because it's the same fucking thing every year.
They changed it this year. They changed it.
They finally got the hint after like a decade of gallops. But so when Kurt Busch got fired from Penske in 2011, he ended up going to Finch for that 1 year. When he went to that 51 car, I had access to the sponsor art before it went to the Daytona 500 for the 51 with Tissot. I had done up the whole car in the sim. I had the new Holly Barrel carburetors logo, the new pole logo, everything before I ever saw the track or TV or promotional material. And somebody within my group of sim painters took my art and put it out there on the network and the world. I was getting emails from Holly, from Tissot, from Finch, like, how the fuck did you get this? I'm like, no, I am not getting anybody fired. And they were getting ready to cease and desist me. I'm like, I'm not selling this shit. I didn't put it out there. Like somebody else had already taken and distributed it. So I mean, they watch, they pay attention. It's why like Marathon Fuels, for example, used to do cease and desist for anybody in sim racing who would put up Kyle Petty's car. And when he was in the 25 or 45 with the Marathon Fuels, like they did not want representation of their logo out there, misrepresented.
Why?
Because companies are very picky. Lowe's is the same way, very picky about their branding and how
we learned that,
UPS is. UPS is very protective about their IP as well. You know, they have a color code scheme and everything. So that ends our super side topic of diecast collecting and sim.
I love diecast though.
We could do a whole episode on this stuff because I love it. It's fun.
I got billed today for the Valvoline Sonoma win.
Okay.
Premier Elite.
How much was that thing?
157.
Okay, so that's inside
that's
pre-tariff.
That's no.
Well, when the Premier Elite 140.
Yes, but with your your other shit with your
discounts and everything. Yeah.
discounts, it's I think the last one was 143 or 145, so it's up $12 at
Oh,
least.
so it did get the tariff
Yeah,
added to it then.
yeah. Hmm.
Okay. So bringing it back to what we were talking about with Cindric, then Lionel did post a tariff update, and then we'll get into the Xfinity race on their page, basically saying we're not going to be listing any. Basically, all sales are paused, other than what's already shipped or slated to come across the ocean. Anything going forward is pretty much paused until
Yeah, been waiting for it to settle down.
yeah, until all that stuff settles down. So what they're going to do instead, and we talked about this in tariff only episode, but they basically said we're going to do up all the render art and just mark it as coming soon, which I think is going to end up leading to a lot of those cars are going to end up being DMP. By the time they offer them, people are going to not. Most collectors are not
They're
going to
not
be
interested.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, Larson guys are going to buy win cars. That's going to happen.
So I mean,
The last thing I have
good. Yeah. Go
on
ahead.
the Cup race, and it is Larson related.
Yeah.
I am blown away with how the last two drafting tracks have gone for him. I'm just over. I mean, I hate drafting tracks still, but
Yep.
to, to 3 races ago, he wrecks at Darlington, falls from second to sixth in points.
Yep.
60 something points out of the point lead. He dominates Bristol, wins all 3 stages, and then he goes and wins stage one at Dega.
Yep.
So he wins 4 stages in a row, and then he goes and with the DNQ of the 60 and the 22, he ended up actually finishing second in stage two,
Yep.
and then finishes second in the race. So insane point day for a day that I always go into thinking if we
Yeah.
finish top 10, if we finish 10th, I'll be happy. So
Like just don't go
the,
back on the rollback and I'll be fine.
yeah, yeah. So he is now only 31 out, second in points again. So you kind of wonder if Darlington doesn't go how it went, he'd probably be the point leader right now if everything else goes the same as it did.
Yeah.
So what Blake's saying is he wants to tie this back into the diecast and wants to know if we can get a stage win diecast for Talladega for Kyle
Yes,
Larson.
because I don't see him ever winning Talladega.
Look, with the number of times that Larson has wrecked tracks, this is the closest to a win he's ever gotten. So
No, he finished second at the one Ross one, I think, or third, second or third.
But
I can't remember.
yeah, can we get a stage win edition?
Yeah, but yeah, I wanted to bring that up. But with the Xfinity race, I felt this is where me and Brad are gonna duke it out. So
Yep.
Zilich's wreck on the last lap is really the biggest thing in the whole race for me, and he hit were harder than Bell did, in my opinion. And you could just there's a slow mo or a screen grab of that where his entire it's all the way up to the cabin,
Yeah, the
yeah,
firewall.
the firewall. And I think in those situations, I don't care if it's the last lap, you throw that caution immediately because you want it whether it's the last lap or not, and there's nobody coming. You want to get EMS out there, and you want to make sure that the cars are slowing down right there because whether it's the last lap or not, safety is everything, and we want NASCAR to throw a caution, whether it's lap one or the last lap. It needs to be congruent, you know. So if it's not if it's not a caution on lap one, like say somebody, or if it is a caution on lap one and somebody just does a donut and keep going, then it shouldn't be a caution, or it should be a caution on the last lap. And that's why I disagreed in our chat because it was the last lap, yeah, but that is a caution every other lap of the race.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
I used to be on
Yep.
board with that. I used to be on board with that. It's the last lap. They're not going to be at full speed next time they come by there. But we do want NASCAR to be uh, do the same thing instead of being we're doing this time this way this time this way this time. If they keep doing that, then we won't have anything to bitch about because they always do it.
Mhm.
And they have been good about that. They did it at Atlanta. There was a wreck on the last lap. They threw a caution. They did it here, caution. And then that's how it should be because it's always going to be a caution every other lap of the race.
Yeah, and I do agree with what you're saying there. My thought process was, it was on the backstretch. They were getting close to going into turn 3. That track is so freaking big, though, that they would have had time to let him run all the way to the end. It was going to be a great finish. He was down on the infield wall there, out of the way of the racing surface. They could have, for the most part, been slowed down on that. It just drives me crazy, we were talking a couple weeks ago with the Junior and Gordon at Dega back in 0405, where they're throwing beer cans out because they ran the race, the rest of it out under caution. And to me, I'm like, if he's out of the way, which I'm glad he didn't get hurt, but I'm like, either let him run or throw the caution. Granted, I get it's the last lap, but to me, re-rack them, let them go again. Because if you go to a dirt track race, they finish under green all the dirt track races. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, just if I'm paying to go there, I want to watch them finish, run to the checkered flag under green, not running the rest of it under caution because it was going to be a great finish for those 3 cars there. And, yeah, I do think you're right. Well, actually, I know you're right. Safety is more important. Safety does come first. But the fan of me is like, damn, that was going to be a hell of a finish there at the end
What
there.
was the photo finish, Brad? It
Well, I
was
mean,
just
to see
not
where they
where
were
you
at when the
wanted it
caution
to.
came
Just
out.
where the photo was taken was not where you wanted it.
It was
Here's
taken
the
way
only
over there.
the problem I had. The problem I had with that caution was when they threw it. They didn't throw it fast enough
Yeah, because they were going into
because
turn 3 when they finally
yeah,
threw it.
and
Yeah.
and that happened way sooner than that. And you know where they threw the caution, and I know it takes time to reach down and press the damn button, but you
It
could
ain't that
tell
much
that they
time.
waited. They waited, and that wait cost Jeb Burton a chance at the playoffs
Yeah, because
because
I think he was actually ahead when
he was
that
he
actually
was
made contact.
ahead after that
Yeah,
happened,
right.
and then you wait, and then you give it to Austin Hill, and it's like we're talking about milliseconds here, and you're screwing a team's chance at a playoff berth because of when you press the button.
Yeah.
I think that even I know this is just diving into some bad beans here, but this this is it's when a car I think when the car hits the wall, that moment you throw a caution, especially as hard as you hit, because
Yeah,
if
no,
it's
I
on the
agree.
last
He knocked the
lap,
shit out of it.
if it's on the last lap and you know you're going to throw a caution on the last lap, you see a car go head on the wall, click, and whoever's
So
leading at that moment is the winner. Instead of waiting 3 seconds and letting a run happen, and then all of a sudden Austin Hill, who was third before that little incident happened, is now the winner because they waited 2 seconds.
Hmm.
so
Okay.
I'm with you on first off, I'm in agreement with Blake that, and this has been my problem all the way back to when Ryan Blaney won the fucking All-Star race holding his window net up. If it's a safety thing, it's a safety thing, period.
Yeah.
I don't have
I'm
a
surprised
problem
he
with
got
him
away with
winning
that
it,
one.
but that's fucking ridiculous. You're driving one-handed, holding the window net up so you don't get black
Oh,
flag.
this son of a bitch is getting heavy.
Yep. Like if say you can't after especially after what happened with Ryan Newman. You cannot, and what
Yep.
happened with Austin Dillon, literally
Right.
damn near coming through the fence in Daytona in the grandstands, or Carl Edwards when he spun,
I was at that
like
race.
could have
We
been
were just
over
past
the
the start finish line.
yep, or
Yep.
when Elliott Sadler literally cleared the fucking fence height, but they won't show that video. Like these cars, you don't know what's going to happen. So if there's a condition that's unsafe, it shouldn't matter who's leading, what lap it is, where it is. Unsafe is unsafe, period. Or stop telling me that safety is your number one concern because clearly it's fucking not. And that's okay, but just own it. Stop saying safety is our number one goal. We're number one safety innovators, and just own that too. That you would rather put on a show than care about driver safety. That's fine. Those 40 men and women know what the hell they're signing up for, and they have to take that into account that we sign up to potentially die purposefully in the name of entertainment, not for sport, but entertainment.
The other point I want to make to this
Yeah.
is I get exactly what you're saying. If it's going to be a caution on lap 1, then it should be a caution on the last lap as well. Other than they're not fucking consistent about it. They never have been. I really don't think they ever fucking will be.
They have
But
been
on the
lately.
but on the last lap at fucking Talladega, a single car wreck, I could see 3 or more, but a single car wreck. You're telling me all those cars went by. They're not going to come back around at speed. You couldn't send fucking safety equipment out there with no more cars coming?
Yeah, and that's kind of what I
They're
was
gonna-
thinking too, because
They're
Dega
going to
is
cross
so
the start
big.
finish line. They're going to cross the
Yeah.
start finish line. And all you got to do, you have officials that can talk to you, that are talking to the spotters and be like, as soon as we cross the start finish line, you need to have your driver fucking back it down. There's safety workers on the back stretch.
So I'm with you 110% until you start the argument of you have to tell them to back it down. How many times have we seen somebody come flying into a fucking wreck because they're not paying attention and people are taking off their belts and doing all this? So this is why
Or
I
pitting at
think-
Talladega.
so my
Yeah.
personal, if I could, I don't know how feasible and how often it would get it wrong, but if I was going to solve this problem, honestly, I'd take it out of the human element altogether. We have AI now and all these things. What I would do is I would put a sensor. I would have a G-force sensor in every car.
In the wall.
And at the moment,
Or in the walls.
whether it hits the wall, gets turned sideways, and it would measure 300 or 720-degree rotation, up, down, left, right, and we would set limits, tripwires. If it spins more than so much a degree, it's an immediate caution because you know that car is going into something or somewhere. Period.
Mhm.
It's loose and spins. Whether they
Well,
say
then you would have had a caution when John Hunter spun out, and they
So-
didn't throw a caution for that.
and it would have been. But this way, it's consistent across the board. It's no longer human determined. If you meet
Okay.
condition A, B, and C, it's automatic caution. And that sensor would also read impact. So you could set an impact that measures more than a certain number of G's and say any hit that exceeds this G-force limit, it automatically sends a signal through that transponder and the caution light goes up. It's not up for human debate because we've set a limit that says this is the amount we deem safe at an impact.
They
That would
already have
solve
an-
this altogether.
They-
And you have
they
that
already
in
have-
mouth guards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna say they already have the fucking easiest way to fucking determine that, and that's the fucking mouthpiece.
But you don't get those in real time. You get that
Yeah,
after the fact
those
when you
are-
read it. What I
yeah.
would do is I would have this sensor in the chassis, like in the inner greenhouse. The moment whether you hit side, front, rear, then
We don't want to spend the money for that, Alan.
because
Yeah,
it
god
would
damn it.
literally
but
be- it would be a fucking chip about this big. That's all it would take.
We don't want to spend the money for that, Alan.
I know.
We can't.
We'll
we
get
Somebody
into
can't-
call
that with
Jeff
the
Gluck.
All-Star.
Somebody
Where's
called
Jeff Gluck? We need him. Where's
God
Jeff
damn
Gluck?
So, other than that, I thought the Xfinity race was good. It's another, prime example of to go back to it, what was the Xfinity car and what is it still? It's just a COT with Gen 6 fucking nose and tail on it. That's all
Yeah.
it's a COT with a Gen 6 nose and tail.
Yeah, it's their version
Why
of
the race is so goddamn good.
So
Yeah.
the other thing with the Talladega race for Xfinity is poor Catherine Legg. I mean, she's
Yeah.
minding her own business, and a former Cup driver doesn't listen to his spotter fast enough.
Yeah.
And he says clear up, and he waits 3 seconds to do it. Well, you're not clear anymore, bud.
Yep.
Like
It's
I don't know.
I feel for her just like I felt for Haley Deegan. Like some of it's wrong place, wrong time. Some of it's not having enough experience.
The two wrecks she's been in, the last two were not her fault.
No, I agree. Not of her own doing. She was
Yeah.
that lane. What's his nuts was in when he wrecked her at Rockingham. He was wrong. Period.
Yep.
Was it Swalach? Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
What I meant. So what I meant.
Yes.
What I
Spadamas. So. Anything else you want to talk about with Talladega? Before we get into Jeff Gluck rant and the All Stars, the next topic. Go ahead.
I do want to bring something up that I don't, it really hasn't been talked about much that I've heard of. I think they brought it up a little bit on one of the podcasts I was listening to earlier, but am I the only one that saw how fucking close that 20 car was to take off?
Yeah, that car.
That was a fucking crazy impact because that car wasn't slowing down because the wheels weren't touching the fucking ground.
No. Yeah, you're not wrong.
I'll have to go
That
back
that
and
that
watch.
that that car was almost airborne. The front wheels were not touching the ground.
Yep.
That car had fucking liftoff and barely set down right before he made impact with the fucking wall.
And these cars
That's one of
are
the reasons.
purposefully designed to run the air under them. Which what do you run air under to make something take off?
Airplane?
Oh, an airplane. That's right.
Yeah.
Fucking airplane.
Interesting.
That's a mystery.
Yeah, I don't know why it takes off every
No.
time. You design the whole front end like a goddamn airplane and the underneath,
Could,
and you wonder
could
why.
you imagine it if that car would have taken off and ended up in the infield over that fence?
Yeah, and the campers.
If they're lucky, I would have to see I'd have to go back and rewatch it again. It might be in an area where he's either going to end up in the fucking campers or he's going to end up in the lake.
Which if he ends up in the
That
lake,
would have been
if he ends
best
up in the
case
lake, he's
scenario.
dead.
Does Talladega have a lake?
Oh no,
Talladega
no,
don't have a
No,
lake.
they
that's
don't.
I was thinking Daytona. Never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd ended up
Okay.
out in fucking campers.
All right,
Yeah.
so those let's 200-mile-an-hour missile, fiberglass camper. I think the missile wins.
Nah.
Lake Lloyd wins in the other scenario in Daytona. He's dead. Period. He won't be able to get up fast enough
Maybe.
because you won't. First off, the water's dark. He's not gonna be able to see. He's got to get out of his helmet, all of his gear. Like he's dead, no question. He goes into the lake.
Yeah.
So that's. I mean,
This
it is.
got ominous real good, real fast.
Yep. So I'm just saying, like you're not wrong. It was very close. So
So you're wanting to talk about the All-Star race?
yeah, so we'll go to the All-Star race next and the Jeff Gluck rant. So we'll start with the initial discussions and what Jordan Bianchi leaked. So in his super awesome super sleuth reporter skills, he went and got the information about what they were talking about. So apparently about a month ago, NASCAR told the teams essentially we were going to give you the option to do a run what you brung race. The initial thought most people had was, hell yeah, that's awesome. You're thinking old school run what you brung. However, NASCAR placed limitations explicitly on the following components that could not be modified: engines, tires, parts supplied by NASCAR approved vendors, and safety components.
What are you fixing?
How is that not the whole fucking car? So if I can't, other than bending the chassis, so if I can't modify roof rails or wickers or the hood vents, I can't mess with the body because it's carbon fiber. I can't do any of that. I can't touch the wheels. I can't touch the tires, and you're not going to let me put more horsepower in it. Why on God's green earth do you think the manufacturers, or more specifically the teams, to Denny's point, would want to spend $300,000 a car and throwaway cars in their inventory that you can't take anywhere else? So I am 110% with Jeff Gluck on telling teams to shut the fuck up and stop bitching about the money. You got more money. Money is not shouldn't be the number one reason why we don't do it. However, I also agree with Denny's counterpoint, and we didn't design this shitbox of a car. NASCAR did without our input. We should not have to fix it. NASCAR should let us start with a fresh platform and start over, this time with the team's input, because the questions were asked and it's been openly discussed that until we got to the Charlotte Roval race and they realized, oh shit, this car races like total trash without horsepower, and because they only ever ran it in a single car format by itself the entire time, focused so much on safety and never about performance. And now we're stuck with what we got. So I think the overall idea is a good idea. I would love to see them bring what they got, but you can't say bring whatever you want to bring, but take all this stuff off the table too. Like at that point, at that point to me, it's just lip service, and it makes the teams look bad, and really, it makes the teams look bad to cover your ass on a
problem. I just wish the teams would have or went back at him and go, hey, no, sir, but please give us $850 for this race.
Yeah,
we don't want to do that. That's cost a lot of money, and they're right. They're going to ruin a car that they'll never be able to use again. But give us 850 horsepower because we know we can do it. We know that we know that it's something we can do now that doesn't cost any extra money. We literally just take a taper spacer out of the damn car because the engines are already capable of doing that.
Oh yeah.
There's been engine builders saying it. Doug Yates, one of them. So let us bring out 850 horsepower and see what this car does on a short track with more power.
I think I agree with you. I wish the teams would have gone back and said, okay, we agree. We will not touch any of the safety aspects of this car. We will not modify the way any of these parts are designed. How about you let me pick which parts go on the fucking car? Like, I'm not putting the entire underbody on there at all. I'm not gonna put the roof rail, the wicker shit on there either. And I'm gonna put the shortest spoiler of all the options that I can get. And I'm gonna use the most bouncy shocks or whatever. Like, I can use any parts that are in the kit that I can use, but I can choose which parts not to put on there too, as long as they have no impact on safety. Since we're going to the All-Star race and it's a short track, then it doesn't matter. It's not like I have to have all these other things. And then, yeah, I'd be like, there's no engine limitation. Ford, Chevy, Toyota, you want to bring 1,000 horsepower? You want to bring 1,200 horsepower? Go nuts.
I
Because
wouldn't want
race.
that.
It's one race.
I
For
think
the
if you're
engine,
doing
that's
it,
different.
if you're doing it, you need to do it like they used to do the All-Star race as a test. They used to.
Yeah.
And that's what they should have done. They should have done it. They should have came back and said, screw you, we'll run what you brung. We want everybody to have the same car like we do now, but let's try more horsepower for this one race to see if we're right. Because I mean, that's what they've been clamoring for. Why don't you beg for that for the All-Star race only? And you never know. It might be what you actually need. And NASCAR goes, oh shit, the damn teams are right.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Because
just think
as we know, when they tested the car, they were testing at 500 horsepower on Charlotte on the oval,
Yep.
and they were spinning out at 500 horsepower. So they gave them 670, and that's the best package we have. So if you take that same logic, put it on a short track with more horsepower, you think this car would run better on a short track with more horsepower with that logic. So that's what the team should have done. The fact that it didn't blows my mind.
Go ahead, Chris.
just I think Bianchi reported it wrong, and I think NASCAR meant run what we let you brung.
Good point. We'll let you run what we already give you.
Yeah. I mean, to an extent, I understand Gluck's rant. I get it. I think the way I just think the way it came out was wrong, because we sit here and constantly the one of the biggest ones again that drives me up the fucking wall, especially when it comes to bad mouthing the way people drive, because he was one that fucking did it. You go right back to fucking Denny Hamlin, and he's like, nope, once the team told me what it was going to take to do this and this and this, we can't afford that. But yet he's sat there how many times on his own fucking podcast and says, well, when they tell us we can't spend the money here, guess what? We go spend it somewhere else. So how much money are you guys really? Why? I get Gluck's rant. Why is this still about fucking cutting cost? Because you guys prove and say over and over again, we're not cutting any cost because we still go spend that money somewhere else.
Yeah.
Which is a bullshit fucking argument.
Well, I think Denny's specific argument, based on what I listened to, and it's just how I interpreted what he said, was versus regular cost cutting. You're asking me to take, his words, a car from my inventory, and I can only have 4, and
Yep.
to purposefully fucking ruin it.
Yep.
Now you want me to take 3 of them from, in his case, 3 cars. In Rick Hendry's case, it'd be 4. Joe Gibbs, 4. So you want me to take $300,000 worth of assets times the number
Plus.
of cars I have in a team.
Plus.
And then, well, per car. So $300,000 per team, and just junk it. And then ask you for another one based on the limitations. But Denny's other point was, for what? If I don't win the race, I get nothing. So you want me to junk a $300,000 car versus 3 or 4 or 2 or whatever for a chance at $1 million that hasn't gone up in 20 plus years?
Mm-hmm.
That purse right now, due to inflation, should be at like 3 point whatever million. If you did that
Or-
and you said the winner is 1 million, second place is 300,000, then and you or whatever, and you break it down across the field, it's a much more enticing offer to everybody. But you can't go to Haas, for example, with their one car, or what was JTG Dougherty, now Hayek, who's running a one car operation, and say, I need you to take one of your only four assets. It's not like you've got three other teams to lean on. I need you to take one of your cars and just throw it out the window. And
Yeah.
that's in your budget for the year. I
I
can
mean,
understand what he,
Kyle Busch threw it out the window last year.
that's true. That's true.
But the one part of Gluck's rant that I didn't agree with was him sitting it's not that I don't agree with Gluck's rant, but NASCAR, and this is where I understand what Denny's saying, especially when it comes to the underfunded teams, the single car teams, and when NASCAR has made it almost impossible for some of these teams without having people buy in or without just having endless amounts of sponsors that keep throwing money at them.
Yeah, with
But
investors and stuff.
like Carl Long, I think that would be. I'm surprised even today that Carl Long's even still in the sport with some of the shit that's gone on in the past with him. But NASCAR's putting it to the point now where one more little change like that, and Carl Long won't be in Cup anymore, or as far as Carl Long Motorsports, it won't exist anymore because you're. I'm trying to think how I want to word this.
You're
You
pricing
can't,
it out of business. It's basically like Walmart coming.
yeah,
in,
and you can't,
go under,
because the stipulations that they put on this isn't a run what you brung, which is going to mean you're requiring us, just like at the fucking Clash now, instead of it being pole winners and instead of the All-Star, well, everybody shows up to the All-Star race anyways, but when you're going to fucking take it around and you're going to start fucking traveling, which then adds more cost to the teams instead of having it there at home in fucking Charlotte like we used to, you're going to start getting to the point where these guys, and you want to do a run what you brung. Well, some of these teams were able to be competitive, and you're pricing the smaller teams out of the sport because now they can't afford to go buy that extra car. If NASCAR is going to say this one's just going to be a fucking throwaway, you only get to use it once, well, they can't afford to just go buy another one now. They can't replace that car.
Yeah.
They're not most of these teams aren't even trying anyway. They're just there. The 44, the 66. They're not trying to do shit. They're just there for kicks and giggles, in my opinion. They haven't done anything in years.
Well, yeah, true. But
so if you price them out, you price them out.
But but ultimately, who are you going to bring in? I mean, you say we've got charters sitting here that we can go through and we can. I mean, are you just basically looking to fucking sell out to F1 then?
Teams you brought up don't have charters.
That some of them do, that aren't necessarily competitive on a week out basis.
Yeah.
Well, Rick Ware has all the money in the world, but doesn't really.
Yeah. But I mean, before some of these teams could still stay relevant and they could still stay somewhat competitive because, granted, they're not having to turn around and buy a $300,000+ fucking race car, because they could go buy for pennies on the dollar. They could buy a decent chassis from an old existing team and then manufacture or put decent parts on it and come out and do decent runs. Now, unfortunately, that's why we had back in the day where you had fucking Finch and so guys like that. Granted, you had drivers like Kurt Busch in the fucking car, but we're never going to see that. They're going to price those teams out before we ever see those teams ever have an opportunity to be competitive. They're staying in the sport because of their love of the sport, but NASCAR is basically shitting in their fucking face because they're making it to where they don't have an opportunity to go do a one-off. Those teams aren't. They basically priced them out of even being competitive enough to pull a one-off win at a fucking restrictor plate track.
Yeah. What Finch did with Brad Keselowski, that'll never happen again.
No. Or even what they were able to do when Kurt Busch was in.
Yeah. I'm just saying that kind of era, like to your point, I think the pricing out model. Okay, so we've seen Jimmy Johnson went and got a big money financial investor, and that's basically what got him the sole control of now what is RPM, and now Jimmy Johnson Racing essentially. It's how you've got Spire right now, and as a result, I think if this model continues, the next charter deal, Carl Long is out of business in the Cup Series at least.
Yeah, but
I think,
where
and I think if you took this model to Xfinity, truthfully, I think it would put Dale Jr. out of business because he said, "I'm not going to spend my own money on this. If the sponsorship doesn't cover it, we're not going to be in business." And Dale and Kelly have always run JRM out of their own control, and they're not going to give up that control. So I think if you went to this model at a lower series, you'd be in a world of trouble.
And that's my point. That's where I wanted to end with this whole argument is, okay, so what is NASCAR looking at as far as the fucking end game is concerned here? You've now made it to where probably other than Dale Earnhardt himself, the largest name in the fucking sport, his fucking son, will probably never be a cup owner because you've priced him out. NASCAR's done that. So
NASCAR didn't price him
can't,
out. He priced himself out by not getting in when it was cheap. He priced himself out. It was $2 million, and he said, "Nope, not doing it." And now it's $45 million.
You got the wrong fucking hat on to even be in this argument. You're
an IndyCar guy.
Tell me I'm wrong. He priced himself out.
No, he did.
Priced himself out.
He waited to see what was going to happen, and he was basically all right. So to your point, Dale, I agree he's priced out. However, I don't think he was priced out by NASCAR. In this point, I agree with Blake that Dale's openly admitted he loves to gamble, wishes he could bet. Dale was playing the slots with where the charters were going to come out, and he fucking bet wrong. And instead of coming down, they have fucking skyrocketed, which is good for the team owners. And as long
that
as
was the whole point of it. What was he thinking?
Right, but as long
I'm surprised Kelly didn't catch this.
Yeah, as long as people like Gainbridge, money, companies like that are going to come in and invest. I don't know the name of the one that went in, the financial partner that went into Hayek and went into Legacy, but
I don't know
they came in with enough money to where they just spent the most money ever on a charter after the new charter agreement to get to purchase that charter from
on a piece of paper.
Where on a piece of paper that NASCAR could take away. So,
but where I was going with this is, so where's the end game? Where's the end game though? Where are we looking to end up with this sport? You're getting to the point now where the true racers and the true fans that grew up trying to get in this sport, you're almost making it to where they're not going to be able to make it to the sport anymore because they're not going to have the connections to the people with the money to make it to Cup anymore. I mean, if you really want to go through and your biggest argument right now is going to be cutting cost, then you need to cut the fucking sport back to where everybody that has the opportunity growing up at a short track to come in and be able to make it to the fucking Cup Series.
Well, you know what that means?
What?
You know what that means? That means you're going to have to get rid of charters, which we do need, so that teams actually get money back on their investment. I mean, I am on board with charters. I'm on board with calling them a franchise because when Ricky Rudd sold Rudd Performance Motorsports, he literally got less than pennies on the dollar for everything he owned.
Yeah,
now all of them did.
Same for Rusty Wallace. Same for Darrell. For Michael.
Now you got that return on. Look at what BJ McLeod did with the '78 charter.
He can race as long as he wants.
He can race as long as he wants now because he sold that charter for $40 million.
Yep, and had to
when he bought it from Furniture Row for how much?
Like 3 or 4.
It was 3 or 4 million.
Yeah,
I mean that's what a owner would want.
I get that's what the owners want, but I mean you're going to run out of. You're either going to get what I'm saying is we're going to run out of people that are going to afford to be able to be owners, and there's not going to be shit. Oh, all right.
Well, I'm saying that because
I just don't. I don't see the field growing. I see the field getting smaller, not getting bigger.
You gotta look at this. you got let's go outside of this and the sport that you loved hearing about last week. The NFL, those teams are worth billions right now. These teams right now, after how long has the charter been going on since 17?
Yeah, it went through its.
So
It aligns to the
from
TV contract.
2017 and in 7 years, it has went from 1 million to $45 million.
Yeah.
That is an amazing growth, and it yes, it sucks. You're not going to have your small teams be able to come in and do anything, but your current teams are worth their value, or getting close to worth what they have put into it.
They're still sitting my
No,
in my mind a
no, I'm
long way
saying
from it. But
Rick Hendrick's a long way from it, but like Rick and Joe are long way from it. But you know, if they were to get out right now,
would be like
they
they're
are,
getting near their investment. Yeah.
40 million, 45 million times four for Rick Hendrick.
Yeah.
If he were to choose to get out right now,
Well, hold on. 45 million was the last place car.
yeah,
So now you take and you do a Hendrick car. A Hendrick car, you're
75
probably
mil.
talking about 400 million,
Yeah.
$100 million a car, probably in charter
Yeah.
value, at least.
So if you look at that, yes, you're not going to have your Carl Longs, but what do they bring to the sport to begin with? Right now, they don't. They're lapped down within 10 laps.
Yeah. I don't want to lose the history, so I'm in Chris's corner on that. But to Chris's point, I do think, and I think once we started the charter evolution and it started getting into these numbers, which is good for the teams, it's a snowball going downhill. There's no stopping it. Unless the TV agreement and charter don't get renewed together, I think there's no stopping this snowball. So we went from one
The only thing that stops the
everybody.
snowball is NASCAR itself because they can't get out of their own way.
All right. So right now, everybody that was an initial owner prior to all those people that bought in, everybody got their charters for free. After that, they've now since built value. If they keep going the way they're going, when Dan Snyder sold the Redskins, he sold them for less than $1 billion. Now they're like a $30 billion franchise, and they prior to getting Jalen, they or not what's his name?
Daniels.
Daniels. They haven't been worth a crap in how long, but they're a multi-billion-dollar organization now. That's where I see NASCAR teams going. If the charter agreement goes another level, if it runs this whole thing, depending on how the lawsuit comes out, and then we get another charter agreement, I see Rick Hendrick's franchise being worth that of like a Formula One franchise. It's going to be a multi-billion-dollar asset at that point.
I was about to bring that up. Formula One is proof that works.
Yep.
Yes, they have a smaller field, but that field has gotten bigger last year. It's got bigger this year,
Yep.
and it's getting bigger next year with Cadillac coming in. So yes, they're going to be at 26 cars, but if NASCAR is at 36 charters, and all those teams minus four maybe are very competitive. So it's only helping, in my opinion.
And there's going to be in order for it to grow, there has to be death in the cycle of capitalism. I will say, you look at Formula One, and definitely not my sport, but Formula One is 26 of the best. There are no slouches. There are 26 elite level, multi-billion dollar badass race teams and 26 elite world talent level drivers. My preference when I run my NASCAR sim game, I get rid of every shitty driver and every shitty team. I don't want any lap cars out there that aren't natural ones that are having a bad day. I want 26, 30.
I got a bail.
Sorry. Yeah. But we got to the good stuff with you. So thanks for being on, buddy. Sorry.
I got to
Yeah.
soon as
But
well.
Yeah, you're good, man. But I got to bail, guys. We'll talk at you later.
Yep.
See you, buddy.
Yeah. But
Have a good one.
My goal, if I was running the sport, I know it's not where we started with the sport with anybody could show up, but we've been a long way from that a long time now. If we're going to have 30 cars, fine. I want the 30 best fucking cars on the track at the top level.
And that's what I was trying to get at.
If you want to come in and start out at the trucks, that's fine. A startup guy should be able to come in at the trucks or even Xfinity. But the premier level should not be somebody who builds a car in their garage and shows up anymore. It's not. That's just where we are now. So
And that's what I was trying to get with Chris. I hated doing it like that, but like it's the truth. I mean, Carl Long's team, whether it lives or dies, it's already dead in my eyes. It's already
and
dead. When
and
you're
if
how many laps down was that 66 car at Bristol last fall?
oh
Me
yeah,
and you went.
it was the Arby's fast lap pass, like fast lap car award. But I'm just curious. So in I don't know if you all listen to it, but when Landon, Castle and Parker do their podcast every week, I like theirs because they got some really off the cuff, off the wall stuff. But I'm curious what you think, Brad, and what you would like to this idea that they had. They were like, why don't we just pull a fucking Days of Thunder? Let's go get a bunch of literally fucking rental cars. It's the All-Star race. You can put cages in them. Chevy supplies, all right, we're gonna run a bunch of Malibus, a bunch of Camrys, and a bunch of
I wouldn't.
hold on. So Malibus, Camrys, and let's say Ford 500s or whatever they quote or Fusions. You yank the factory motors out and you can put your race power plant in there. That's the only thing you can add other than a roll bar. Add a roll cage and a racing engine. Let's line them up and let's go. Let's see how this comes out. That would be fun to watch because
It's
everybody.
funny, but I wouldn't want to watch it.
Well, I mean, if you're not going to offer them any more than $1 million anyway, and there's not going to
Yeah.
be any innovation gains from it and everything, then I think it would just be good entertainment if that's all we're going to use the All-Star race for anyway. If we're not, to your point, about going to use this as an innovation experiment, then we might as well make it a true entertainment experience and do like the thing that Bald Eagle Man whipping around the top of Talladega. I can't think of the Cletus McFarland's race for nothing. The Freedom 500 or whatever it is. Just do something like that at the big level. I think it'd be great. Because then at least it's something to tune in and watch from a different perspective. Because we've gotten so far away from the other stuff. I do want to, before we wrap up, because we've kind of gone all over about the All-Star race and charters and everything, but I do want to ask you, what do you think about this promoter's caution BS? Because the team shot down the rung what you brung, that kind of put it back in the hands. So literally, Market Smith is going to be the one who determines when the caution is. What do you?
I think the only person happy about this is Clint Boyer. Clint Boyer is rooting for a caution every damn race.
Yeah.
If you, I don't know if you all remember Bristol, but he was like, he didn't say it, but you could tell he's rooting for a caution
Yeah.
because Larson was spanking him, and it's like Clint is just so. He's kind of like our old pal Mitch. He just wants entertainment caution over anything,
Well,
and
to me,
and
it's
I
interesting how fast they go from being the guy behind the wheel who Dale Jr. is one of them too. He's bought into all this shit too, much as I love him. But there's he does such they go how quickly they go from competitor to once I saw it in the TV booth, I totally agree. We should turn this into manufactured excitement. Like let's just strip all the fucking integrity out of it.
yeah I
And
I
it
I'm not for it unless you know if they do it right, like in the sense of don't because so the race is 250, you can do it by 220. Don't wait till lap 219 to do it. Randomly throw that bitch. Like literally roll some dice and go, okay, I'm gonna do it on lap 190. Or just don't don't wait till the last second to do it. If
I
you're gonna
wish
if you're gonna actually do this.
I would like to see him do, you know how any of you either y'all watch those game shows where it's like no whammy, no whammy, no whammy, and then they hit the button.
Yeah.
I wish they would do that and pre-record it and not show anybody till the race is going so that the crew chiefs can't tell the teams when the caution's coming so they can't pre-plan their strategy. But in a closed off room, you have they just grab a random fan. You're going to hit the button. We're going to have a random number generator. It's going to go between 0 and 220 or we're not even going to give you the chance to get 220. We're going to say 0 and like 175 and it's going to start spinning and you're just going to hit a button. And when it stops, that's the number. We've recorded it. It's ready to go. Kind of like the fan vote. We're going to start the race. As they start going, maybe 30, 40 laps into it. That way, nobody's had a chance to change their tire strategy, their fuel strategy, because they genuinely don't know when the fucking caution's going to come out. If nothing's come out yet, then they say, well, at the pre-race, we selected a fan randomly and we introduced them, and then here's the lap that they randomly selected based off the thing. Now the teams can't manipulate the strategy because you've already burnt your fuel, you've already done your tire thing, and you are where you are. And if you go too conservative, you could put yourself in a bad spot. And if you don't go far, if you go too hard, you can put yourself in a bad spot. So you have to pick like what's the right way to go. And since there's no other inversions, special tires or anything else, it become a true setup race. And then they say, oh, we're 40 laps in, and if nothing happens by 139, there's going to be a caution. Well, I already burnt my stuff. I can't even make it to 139. Or I've got enough fuel, I can make it to 139, but the guys who didn't. So I think that would have been a good way, but definitely don't give it to the promoter. Like it's the promoter's initiative, but the promoter
The promoter's going to do it at lap 220.
Yeah.
That's when he's going to do it. I mean, we all know it.
Yeah.
If it makes it to lap 200 and they haven't done it, all the teams are going to go, yep, they're going to do it by 219 or whatever.
So, what do you think, Brad?
I don't know. Yeah, I kind of like that as well too. I mean, I think they'll wait till about that time period as well to kind of throw something out there, add a little more excitement into it instead of just letting it run and run and round and round. And I think that'll be a 220 issue as well. But I do like your idea with the no whammy, no whammy.
Yeah.
I think it shows our age on that as well.
Yeah, but I mean, I still like watching those shows on the Game Show Network when I go to the bar. They are entertaining because I'm like, oh
Right.
yeah, I remember this one. This one was awesome. Watch that
Right.
with grandparents. But I mean, it's not a bad concept. Like, you know what? All right, got a random number generator. Like just like when you spin the wheel and the freaking Price is Right, it's gonna land on a number,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's the caution. But you don't know. You won't know with a number until you're a good half a fuel run in, unless something happens. That way, nobody can game the system. Everybody has to race straight up. At
Yeah.
that point, everybody's made their bed. Now it's a real race, and you kind of force their hand.
Speaking of beds, I got to get to
Yep,
bed.
I know you got to get to it. The only thing left I had on my thing was Rodney quitting. So initially, I thought it was for him to like reprioritize the way they made it sound initially, like we're both parting ways mutually. Then it sounds like it's more one side parting with the other. And as we get into the different, uh, he said, they said, to me, it sounds like more of the same of which I wish Chris was on here and we had saved this part for him, but of why I feel bad for Corey again. It sounds like Spire continues to spend the money, but they're not running a very efficient, organized team.
Yeah,
And
it felt like he said
is,
they had a meeting just to have a meeting.
yeah. One question I had, and I needed to go look it up. At one point, Steve Letarte was helping like guide Spire. I don't think he does that anymore. I think he's left too. So if Corey's
Yeah.
left, Steve's left, you had a championship crew chief in Rodney Childers, one of the best innovators out there. You got him and you ran him off because your business, from his perspective, you're not running your race teams the way that he thinks they ought to run. And I mean, he's got more trophies than you've ever got. So I'd be listening to him,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion. Uh, to me, I think that lends credence to why Spire is so hot and cold all the time. It's not that Carson Hocevar has proven they can put together fast cars. Fast drivers can move fast cars, but they can't seem to build them consistently fast, which makes sense. So now going back to our preseason discussion, and how this kind of plays in with McDowell moving over there, I'm beginning to wonder if McDowell regrets his decision to leave. Yeah, you got a more consistent contract, but you are not in a better car and you're not in a better situation. You might be in a better financial situation, but you're not in a better competitive situation.
It's an even car, but
So, any thoughts on that part with him leaving, Brad?
No.
Nah, okay.
No, I
Because it's
don't.
not Penske.
No.
Now, he said
Does
he
not
wants to
pique
be
my
back in
interest.
there. I will say that you and I talked about it once it was initially announced last week, Blake. If anybody's gonna pick him up, if I was Kyle Busch, I'd be banging on RC's fucking door. Can I please hire this dude? Please, for the love of God. You know, get
yep.
me a crew chief that knows what the hell they're doing. So,
Yeah, it's obvious that I can't remember his crew chief's name, but it's obvious that the guy that
That worked
he
well.
has now
Yeah.
that worked with
Right.
Reddick well, they don't really mesh too well.
Nope. It's not that he's a bad crew chief, just certain driver pairings don't work well. I think Kyle Busch is very much has always been a hands-on engineering guy. His crew chiefs usually listen to him. I think Rodney would listen to him. I think him and Kyle would accomplish a lot.
Yep.
But all right, I'll let you go. I know you got to get up early. We let Chris go. Appreciate everybody's time. I'll get our stuff uploaded, and that's our show for the week. We'll see what we come to. Where are we going next? I don't.
Texas.
All right, so Texas. I don't know what to expect because they keep messing with the damn track and they've broken it beyond all configuration.
I know, and that used to be one of my favorite tracks too.
Same. I used to love Texas. I like the old
Yeah.
version better.
Yeah.
But even this version we used to put
Parsons
on
gonna spank him again. That's what's gonna happen.
Probably.
Thank that ass.
I don't know.
Right.
He's got to hold up that window net. You know, he's got to pull a Blaney to hold it. As long as he doesn't go out there and pull a Jimmy Johnson, like Jimmy Johnson did when he changed crew chiefs and went right up there and freaking basically did what he did to himself at Darlington, goes low and spins that fucking car and wrecks it. As long as he can make it through the opening stages when that track is slick as glass, I agree. I think he's going to be damn hard to beat. So we'll see. But, all right. Thanks everybody who decides to give us a listen. Leave us any feedback you got, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, gentlemen.
All right, see you all.
See ya.
See you, buddy.
Like that hat, man. It's good looking.